Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished colleagues, thank you for joining today. We confront an inflection point in modern geopolitics. The Middle East is teetering on the brink as Iran and Israel spiral toward direct confrontation, driven by the devastated backdrop of Gaza. Iran has moved beyond its long-standing strategy of indirect confrontation with Israel through proxy groups and has instead taken the unprecedented step of launching direct drone and missile attacks against Israeli territory. This marks a sharp escalation in the conflict and signals a willingness by Tehran to risk open warfare rather than relying solely on its network of regional allies. The strikes not only caused military and civilian disruption inside Israel, but also sent a clear geopolitical message. Iran is prepared to retaliate forcefully for Israel's continued actions in Gaza and beyond. In response, Israel initiated Operation Rising Lion, a high-intensity campaign aimed at crippling Iran's nuclear capabilities and degrading its military infrastructure. These operations have involved deep penetration airstrikes and cyber-sabotage, intensifying fears that both nations are edging toward an all-out regional war. The situation represents a dangerous shift from proxy skirmishes to direct state-on-state confrontation, dramatically raising the stakes for regional stability and drawing in the attention and concern of global powers. Gaza is enduring one of the gravest humanitarian crises in modern history, with the death toll surpassing 61,000 people since the conflict's escalation in October 2023. Entire neighborhoods have been reduced to rubble under relentless bombardment, leaving hundreds of thousands homeless and forcing families to seek refuge in overcrowded, unsanitary shelters. Food scarcity has reached the point of famine in some areas, while the collapse of healthcare infrastructure has made even treatable injuries and illnesses deadly. Access to clean water is severely limited, increasing the spread of disease and compounding the suffering of civilians, particularly children. The siege conditions have also cut off regular aid deliveries, and intermittent humanitarian convoys are often delayed or targeted, further straining an already desperate population. The psychological trauma from constant airstrikes, loss of loved ones, and the uncertainty of survival has left an entire generation scarred, turning Gaza into not just a battleground but humanitarian catastrophe unfolding in real time. The rapidly deteriorating situation in Gaza and the escalating Iran-Israel confrontation have triggered a wave of global and regional alarm, prompting urgent diplomatic interventions. Over 24 foreign ministers from across the Middle East, Europe, Africa, and Asia have issued joint statements demanding an immediate ceasefire and the establishment of secure humanitarian corridors to deliver food, water, and medical aid to the besieged population. Egypt, Qatar, and the United States have been leading intensive mediation efforts, putting forward a proposal for a 60-day truce designed to halt hostilities and allow large-scale humanitarian relief operations. However, these negotiations face significant hurdles as Israel continues its military advance with a stated intention to reoccupy Gaza City, an action viewed by many governments and international organizations as a serious obstacle to peace efforts. This dual reality, peace talks on one hand, military escalation on the other, has deepened frustration among mediators and amplified calls from the United Nations and humanitarian agencies for immediate restraint. The fear is that without a simultaneous halt in military action, diplomatic efforts will be undermined, prolonging the suffering in Gaza and increasing the risk of a broader regional conflict. Iran's influence across the Middle East has been built through a vast network of allied armed groups collectively known as the Axis of Resistance, which includes Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and various militias in Syria and Iraq. These factions are not only ideologically aligned with Tehran, but are also heavily armed, trained, and in many cases directly supported by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. In the current crisis, this network has mobilized on multiple fronts. Hezbollah has intensified rocket and missile fire across Israel's northern border. Militias in Syria and Iraq have targeted U.S. and Israeli-linked assets, and Houthi forces in Yemen have threatened shipping routes in the Red Sea, raising the stakes for global trade. This multi-pronged pressure campaign has forced Israel to divide its military focus across several theaters at once, stretching its defense capabilities and creating openings for coordinated attacks. The risk is that even a limited incident, such as a successful large-scale strike from one of these proxies, could trigger a chain reaction drawing in multiple countries. In this way, the proxy entanglements have transformed the Gaza conflict into a region-wide powder keg, where local skirmishes have the potential to ignite a far broader and more devastating war. The scale and complexity of the current crisis have reached a point where piecemeal solutions or temporary ceasefires are unlikely to prevent further escalation. What is needed is a comprehensive diplomatic framework, a grand bargain, that addresses not just the immediate fighting, but the underlying drivers of instability between Israel, Iran, and their respective allies. Such an agreement would require simultaneous commitments on several fronts: an enforceable ceasefire in Gaza, guaranteed humanitarian access for aid organizations, a phased withdrawal of foreign and proxy forces from flashpoint areas, and renewed negotiations on long-term political settlements for both the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and Iran's nuclear program. It would also need strong guarantees from major global powers, including the United States, Russia, and China, to ensure compliance and deter violations. Without this kind of multi-layered, binding accord, the region risks sliding into a sustained cycle of retaliation, where each round of violence leaves deeper political fractures and humanitarian devastation. The urgency lies in shifting the focus from short-term military gains to a durable regional security architecture that prioritizes stability, development, and coexistence over confrontation. History will not remember the number of missiles fired or the military gains claimed. It will remember whether we chose the path of destruction or the path of peace. The Middle East stands at crossroads. One road leads to a spiral of vengeance that could consume generations, the other toward a fragile but attainable stability. The choice is still ours, but every day of delay tips the balance toward chaos. Let us act now, not when the fires are out of control, but while there is still time to prevent the inferno.